In 1999, a certain genre was defined with a resurgence of the skateboarding scene. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released shortly after he pulled off the 900 during the X Games that year, and the game became both a critical and commercial success. Of course, with its success, the team over at Neversoft already dove back into development to create a sequel that was leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessor, and achieved that with ease, building upon a unique trick system, adding manuals into the mix, and probably the most iconic soundtrack list in a series to date, while also adding in some sweet unlockables like playing as Spider-Man with his own unique Spidey special tricks. In 2001, with the launch of the GameCube, the team at Neversoft were hard at work on bringing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 to the next generation, with the PlayStation 2 version releasing just prior to this, and the GameCube port delivering on launch day, while several months later for the original Xbox. The GameCube saw 5 Tony Hawk installments, and in today's episode, I want to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series by covering each of them a bit. So, with all that being said, grab your deck and let's skate through half a decade of Tony Hawk games. Kicking off the franchise into the 6th generation is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Taking everything that worked so well from its predecessors, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 took everything the first 2 games were known for now to the next gen. Players choose from a variety of pro skaters like Tony Hawk, Rodney Mullen, and far more. The Create a Skater feature returns from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 as well, so you can actually tackle their career mode with the personalized skater. The Tony Hawk Pro Skater series was always known for its immensely responsive, fluid, easy-to-learn trick system and controls, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 was the most responsive to date at the time. The traditional 2-minute runs were back, but players were introduced to larger, more interactive levels than ever before, with NPCs within the environments that you can now hit into or that can knock you off your board. Flip tricks, grab tricks, grinds, manuals, and special tricks all return, but a new mechanic was introduced that essentially redefined the scope of combos, which is the revert mechanic. When going off of ramps and landing, you can hit the R trigger and you'll do a 180 board spin as you hit the ground, and it gives you a little bit of time to either manual or ollie and pull off another trick to keep that combo going. While manuals elevated the way combos would connect in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, here came this new revert mechanic that truly was groundbreaking. As stated, the game is otherwise a traditional return for the franchise. There are 10 objectives to tackle in essentially every level, ranging from either earning a high, pro, or 6 score, finding a secret tape, doing a certain trick off a certain object, or interacting with the environment or NPCs, like hitting a foreman into the pool of a foundry, hitting someone whose tongue is stuck to a frozen pole in Canada, which is a nice nod to A Christmas Story, or catching pickpockets in the airport. Interesting fact, this pickpocket mission was changed last minute due to the horrific events of 9/11, as the mission was originally about stopping terrorists from bombing a plane. So last minute, they changed it to just pickpocketers that either chase through the airport terminals. Aside from the objective-based levels, the competitions return as well, which were about getting the highest score you can in a best 2 out of 3 run session, and then you'd be graded based on performance and against AI skaters. Additionally, the game did have the Create a Park feature that was in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, but with more substance this time around, allowing for some really fun creations to be made. The soundtrack here also has some truly memorable tracks, and while not to the mastery of Tony Hawk 1 and 2's soundtrack lists, there are definitely some awesome tunes here, like Alien Ant Farm's Wish, Motorhead's Ace of Spades, and much more. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 also had my favorite unlockable skaters for the generation, consisting of Darth Maul and Wolverine, and each had their own special tricks, much like Spider-Man did in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. There are even some Easter eggs depending on the special skater you use, which I actually highlight in my Easter eggs in GameCube games video, which I will link down below in the description for you to check out. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 really was a game that was as flawless as it got, and as a launch day title for the GameCube, what a way for the series to kick off on next-gen hardware.
Let's see you tear it up. Watch out! Let's see you tear it up. Right on! Not today! Let's see you...
Moving forward with the series, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 looked to change up the formula from the previous 3 iterations, getting rid of the 2-minute time limits per run and instead letting you tackle levels with freedom, approaching NPCs to tackle various objectives. The objectives here are more outlandish than in previous installments, but they're just as creative as well. You have your traditional collect, skate, or combo objectives, which are more challenging than before, as well as the score-based challenges, but there might be times where you're not even skateboarding at all. Instead, you may need to do a luge challenge through gates, or using your skateboard as a tennis racket to play in a match, or even use your skateboard as a bat in baseball. And I have to say, I love the idea of the variety here, but I will also state that playing these type of mini games like the tennis one or the baseball one aren't quite that polished. As for the skateboarding side of things, the responsive controls and immensely rewarding trick system are all intact, and as with each installment, they introduce a new trick mechanic into the mix. In Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, you can now do the skitchin move, which lets you grab onto the back bumper of a car, gaining a ton of speed all while balancing the meter. This lets you launch off of the vehicle to get some major air off of ramps, and it opens up another dynamic on how goals may be approached. Even how you improve stats has changed, where you will earn stat points based on how many objectives you've completed, as opposed to finding actual stat point icons like in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. There are also cash icons littered on maps, which can be spent on new levels, new custom skater gear, decks, cheats, and more. I will state though, one specific element that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is notoriously known for is its difficulty. While this is a franchise I've played since its inception and felt like I've mastered it in many ways, some of the objectives in this game are downright brutal. I'm looking at you, Slalom Gate Challenge in Kona. Apparently the game was known for being too hard at times that Activision told Neversoft to tweak the difficulty for the follow-up games. I do like that even if you fail an objective though, you can immediately pause the game and select retry last goal, which instantly kicks off the challenge again and allows for this seamless way to keep tackling the goal with minimal downtime in between. The Creative Park feature returns, and in a way more similar to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, just with some different parts and themes to cycle between. The in-game engine has definitely seen improvements all around here, especially with its visuals being more vibrant and the NPCs being more detailed than before. The soundtrack here for me is just okay. After the original 3 games, this one felt like the least memorable to me personally, but that's just my take on this. I'm sure there are many who have fond memories of the soundtrack here. Overall, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 felt like a next-gen step forward for the franchise, with fresh new takes and ideas that would carry over for some time.
Whoa! Round Trafalgar Square and then some. Oh, no.
After changing up the formula in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, Neversoft further stepped up changing things with Tony Hawk's Underground. No longer was it about tackling levels and completing objectives with the skater of your choice, but it was about forging your story. You create your own skater for the campaign mode, and here we are introduced with a shockingly well-written story mode. You and your friend Eric Sparrow hear that Chad Muska is coming to town in New Jersey, and from here, things get kinda crazy for how you and Eric get roped into the world of skateboarding, meeting some of the legends, and things do get dicey as the story progresses. I won't spoil anything, but yeah, this is one of the biggest surprises for me personally about Underground. That being said, the idea of roaming levels without a time limit returns from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, except now you can freely jump off of the board and platform your way through levels. You'll be able to jump and grab onto ledges to climb up, and furthermore incorporate the running mechanic of jumping off and back on the board as part of the combo system. This really opened up the exploration, trying to find awesome spots to start a line, and really gives the game even more verticality. You are also able to drive vehicles at times, and while the controls and physics for this are not quite that good, the fact that this was incorporated into the game was completely unexpected for its time, and still provided for more variety than what was on offer here. However, because the game is more story-centric this time around, there is no classic mode or way to play through the game with anyone other than your creative skater. You can, however, replay the game on multiple difficulty settings, which was a way for Neversoft to address the complaints about the harder difficulty found in Tony Hawk 4. As for the other pro skaters, you can play as them in other additional modes like free skate and high score, as well as multiplayer. As for the create features though, Thug does bring back the Creative Park feature, and this time it is the most extensive to date. Here we had more set pieces to utilize with creation, and you can actually create your own goals for your own levels. I can't even state the amount of hours I've spent creating a variety of objectives for my park back in 2004 when I finally got the game. I always felt like this was very extensive, as you can write up dialogue for each NPC you speak with to start the mission, as well as their end mission dialogue. You can also create your own deck, where you can make layers of different art at the bottom of your board. The other create feature that I thought was really awesome was the create a trick feature. This lets you create any type of trick, the timing it takes to pull it off, the spins and flips incorporated with it, and how many tricks connect within an animation, and it is all done so easily with this nice timeline feature. This really makes the feature inviting for anyone to use, and it can provide for some awesome creations. The customization in this game was staggering to say the least, and the overall experience truly reinvented the franchise yet again. The soundtrack is also another banger with a ton of great songs, and more noteworthy are the songs from Kiss in this game. Also, one of the secret characters in this game is freaking Iron Man, and has some really cool special tricks. I mean, look at this. This one is easily my favorite Tony Hawk game on the GameCube, alongside Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Next up is Tony Hawk's Underground 2. After the massive success of its predecessor, it was a no-brainer for the team at Neversoft to utilize the foundation from Thug and go from there. This time, you'll bring your creative skater on a tour that takes you around the world. The premise has you taking part in the World Destruction Tour, where there are two teams of skaters, Team Margera and Team Hawk. And you'll soon realize that the story here is not like that of its predecessor, but actually more like an episode of Jackass, since Bam Margera was very much known for being in that show. Everything mechanically from Underground 1 returns here, the trick system, getting off the board, driving other vehicles at times, but of course does add a few more things into the mix. This time around, you can actually play as other characters within the story mode, and they'll have their own means of transportation and unique trick system, like Jesse James here rocking this sweet ride and has its own tricks dedicated to it. Or why not skate as Benjamin Franklin? But the other skaters are out there where you just go up to them, press the X button, and you take control of them, but they'll also have their own set of goals. It's these aspects that make Underground 2 feel more over the top and outlandish, but that works in its favor rather than against it. Objectives are now point-based, and there are 1,000 points to accrue for each level. Some goals may be worth 25 points, while the more challenging ones may be worth 75 points. It still works similar to the previous games realistically, needing only a certain amount of goals cleared to advance, but this does feel like a fun way to ensure clearing every objective. The levels in this game are fairly expansive, and there's plenty of secrets to discover within each area. Another few new additions are the sticker slap and spray painting mechanics, as well as the new focus mode and freak out. Sticker slap lets you simply press the A button when in mid-air and heading towards a wall, and you're essentially wall planning it where you place a sticker there instead. Spray painting lets you make your designs public to the world in a sense. Furthermore, you can create your own graphics here as a new create feature that was brought to this installment. On a more comical note is the freakout mechanic, which when you bail from a combo, you can rapidly press the Y button, and depending on where your meter ends will determine the animation your skater does to flip out and break the board. You can actually start a new combo this way as well, which is kind of funny honestly. As for the focus meter, this lets you have the game go in slow motion and provides you with an opportunity to really rack up that combo with more flexibility in your motion. Maybe you need to fine-tune your rail or manual balance, or you want to ensure you pull off the tricks that you need with a bit more time. It's something that feels pretty cool to see in action and utilize. They've also implemented a day and night cycle, helping make the environments feel more alive than before. The game also brings about the classic mode, which lets you play levels from the story mode, but with the traditional 10 objectives, 2-minute runs per level. Every other creative feature from the previous games are here, and are precisely as you'd expect them after the foundation that was laid with Tony Hawk Underground 1. However, one thing that struck me as odd starting with this installment was the resolution this version has, which is a 640 by 384 screen size, giving more black borders around the top and bottom of the screen. It does have progressive scan though, regardless of the strange resolution, but it just felt really odd coming from the previous games, and then by the time I got to this one on the GameCube, things just seem kind of squished on the screen. Underground 2 may have a very goofy story, more so than its predecessor, but it's still very much entertaining to experience, and the gameplay is smooth as butter as expected, if not furthermore. Wrapping up the GameCube lineup of Tony Hawk games is Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. This installment ditches the level structure from previous games and goes for a seamless open world approach. Once again, there is the story mode where you'll create a character that leaves the Midwest to escape their past and travels to Los Angeles to start a clean slate. Things go the wrong way early on, but your skater will meet Mindy shortly after as she tries to get you all set to skate and meet a cast of characters along the way. The story here feels like a blend of Underground 1 and 2 in terms of its tone, but a little bit more leaning on the Underground 1 side of things. Also, very much noteworthy is that Will Friedle is the main protagonist's voice, so if you ever wanted to skate as Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond, well, this is the closest you're gonna get.
New clothes, new look, very, I don't give a crap. I like it.
Great. Now where are those punks who stole my stuff?
You start the game in the Hollywood area, and as you complete goals to advance the story, you'll be able to open access to other cities, which you can board seamlessly between with no load screens. Furthermore, you can even quick travel to them using the vehicles within levels, and you can just choose your section you want to go to, and boom, you're there. Every single mechanic from Tony Hawk Underground 2 was brought here, while they added a bit more to the off-board mechanics, like being able to run up walls and double jumping without needing an object to jump off of. As for being on the board, there's also the new Burt slide mechanic, which essentially feels like a drifting mechanic when riding the board. As you complete goals, you'll obtain parts that transfer to a park called American Wasteland, and is all about becoming this ultimate skate park for the locals. The game also has a night and day cycle, and there are certain challenges you can tackle depending on that time of day. In this installment, there is a certain point where you can actually ditch your skateboard and use a BMX bike instead, infusing the foundations of another Activision title, Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX. This game ultimately provides for this massive playground in a sense where you can use skateboards and bikes and just kind of be the best of both worlds. Each section of the world map is fairly big, each being bigger than the maps from the previous games. Aside from the story mode, Classic mode does make a return, but this time with a mix of levels from previous Tony Hawk games, as well as new levels that are pretty neat. But to make the Classic mode stand out even more, for the first time in the series' history, you can actually tackle it in split-screen co-op. This, to me, was pretty mind-blowing for back in the day. Almost all of the creative modes also return from previous iterations, except for the creative goal feature, and additionally that has been removed from the creative park feature as well. It's an odd omission, but it gives more reason to play the other installments as well. There's no question that American Wasteland was an ambitious step forward for the series, introducing the open world aspect, and while this was the point that the franchise fatigue was starting to set in, both for devs and consumers, I still really like what they did with this installment. The Tony Hawk franchise became a series that catapulted the extreme sports genre. There were countless imitators over the years, many that were awesome as well, and others that were maybe not as much. Upon American Wasteland releasing on the GameCube, we were starting to enter the next generation of gaming, with the Xbox 360 launching with that title as well. In 2006, Tony Hawk's Project 8 released as next-gen installments on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, yet released on the PS2, original Xbox, and even the PSP, but it sadly skipped the GameCube entirely, thus ending the Tony Hawk lineage on the GameCube. But even though Project 8 never made its way to the GameCube or the Wii or any Nintendo platform for that matter, we're not ending that on a sour note. Rather, I want to say thank you. Thank you for 25 years to a franchise that is much beloved to myself, as well as millions of others that grew up with this since 1999, and to today, these titles hold a special place in their hearts, much like myself. This is one franchise that's very near and dear to me, and the franchise I feel I can always revisit no matter the platform, no matter the installment. It's because of these games that I have an affinity for the extreme sports gaming genre. One day, I definitely plan to do a deeper dive into the franchise by reviewing each game individually, but for now, this is a brief rundown of each game and what they offered across the board. So, which Tony Hawk game was your favorite? How about which was your least favorite of the batch here? Sound off in the comments below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next episode, GCG Nation.